All right, so here we are.
Hey,
Hi.
welcome to a podcast.
I guess it's a podcast. It's kind of a post-mortem about this virtual production project that we did, which was based on Sonnet 27 by William Shakespeare, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about who we are and what we are. I'm Brett and you're Fara. And what does that mean? We're married and we've been doing creative stuff together for a long time. Right, we
30
met
years or so.
in college,
Mhm.
and we were both theater majors, getting our degrees in theater, and we didn't work together on any college stuff except for maybe like that directing scene that I did with you and Brent.
We did some little things.
But the first
sure.
big thing, I mean, we did tongues. We talked about that with
with Pat,
our
Reed.
good friend Pat Reed. We did tongues, and then we also did a cold reading or a stage reading of a play we ended up doing later again, Quality Time.
That's correct.
By our good friend Craig Bellinger, who was our roommate and also best man at our wedding.
That's correct.
So
and also was very successful in the Seattle Fringe Festival.
Yes. So that particular play, Quality Time, written by Craig Bellinger, we staged in Tucson. And then after we left Tucson, after I graduated, you had graduated a little before me, but then we moved to Seattle. Right?
Correct.
Because we wanted to get involved in the theater scene up there.
Right.
And what kind of stuff did we do up there?
Well, we did a lot of things, but together we did King Lear. We did Quality Time, as we talked about. I think those are the two big ones.
We did Richard II also. We were in that play together. We did.
Right.
We worked kind of in Quality Time, we were a director-actor relationship. Same in King Lear, director-actor. I didn't act in either of those.
That's correct.
I just was the director on both of those, which kind of is carrying through to a lot of different projects. But we really got our start in the theater, and we've always worked together on things. A lot of couples don't seem like they can really function that way, but we do pretty well. Why do you think that is?
Why do we think that is? Patience?
Patience with each other? Or your patience with me?
Probably so.
I don't know. It's definitely, but we've done this for a very long time. You know, this new project that we're going to get into in a little bit, the new short film or microfilm of Shakespeare's Sonnet 27. That's kind of the point of all this. We're going to talk about how we did that and, you know, the finishing of it and what's going to happen next. But we wanted to give you guys a little bit of a background on who we are.
That's
and,
right.
And what we've done. So we did we really kind of both fell in love with the Shakespeare in Seattle, right?
Correct.
I even really kind of began my love affair, honestly, at U of A, Arizona, where we went to college, because I had a great teacher who really got me passionate about Shakespeare, Diane Winslow.
Absolutely.
And I really fell in love with Shakespeare then. But then my love for Shakespeare really blossomed in Seattle. I got to do a few different plays. Like I said, we did Richard II together. But then, so we lived in Seattle for about 6 years, right? We decided that we're going to move to LA to kind of, we've been acting in Seattle. I've been directing and acting. We were both acting.
It's time to maybe take some steps forward.
Yeah, we were not making much money. We were doing some cool work and having fun, but we really were not exactly raking in the dough, as they say.
Most theater actors are not raking in the dough.
Yeah, and we were like most theater actors. We were broke. So we thought, well, we'll move to LA because maybe it'll be better there. At least if we work, maybe we'll make money. We'd been doing it long enough, I think, not to be illusioned that we were going to walk into LA and be superstars. But it seemed like the possibilities were better here.
Sure. Of course.
In terms of maybe
it's
making
just very
money.
Different world out here than it is in the theater world up
Well,
there.
what do you mean by that? What's the difference?
There are different expectations for the roles in theater versus film.
Yeah.
And, you know, we talked about this over and over, but, you know, people, when we first came out here, even people that we knew who were in the industry were a little less than gracious. It was indicative of the potential of what you'd have to work through.
Yeah.
So, you know,
And see, I had a pretty interesting experience when I first moved here because I actually decided very, very quickly that I didn't want to be an actor anymore, even though that was kind of the reason we had moved here. But I remember before we moved here, I was thinking a lot about independent film and how to get that going. Kind of the same way that when we moved to Seattle, I wanted to start our own kind of theater company, the
Right.
Essence Ensemble. I don't know if you remember that one. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it's always the idea of being able to do creative work however you can, and that's always been a priority for both of us, which is probably why we also have been able to work together for so long,
Yeah,
because it's a desire for both of us.
I agree. And I think when I got here, I was it was an interesting time because I had done a lot of theater. I directed some theater. I'd acted in quite a bit, and I think I understood certain things about basics of storytelling. But what I didn't know at all was the technology behind film, and
Yeah.
there's quite a bit there. And
Oh,
it's
there's
got
so much more than we ever imagined. I remember when I started working in post-production, I had no idea what happened after something was shot. Nothing.
yeah, I didn't really either. I mean, I understood the editing process, that there was something that they shot things at multiple angles, and then somebody would take those things and put them together,
Right, right.
and they record sound and they record picture. Those are the basics that I understood, which is not much. But pretty quickly after we got here, I got into editing. I really did want to almost from the beginning direct and then eventually write. I got into those ideas that that's what I wanted to be doing, right? But the first thing I really glommed onto was editing, and that was because we started a little production company with an old friend of ours from college, E.J. Kerwin.
Mythic
Mythic
Net.
Net, that's right. And
Ooh.
we were getting a little bit of money doing some work for the record label that he worked for, Epitaph Records. But then we also did a couple of independent projects that were really like kind of the beginning of us doing uh, independent film, making our own films.
Right,
I
right.
think the first really we did this little one when we had another partner. We won't talk too much about him, but we did that sexual harassment thing.
Oh, right.
But then after that, we did a much bigger project, which was the Macbeth project,
That's correct.
and that was
An
not
educational DVD.
yeah, it was an educational DVD. It wasn't really a short film. It wasn't a short film at all. It was pretty long. I think it was like an hour and a half after all of it. But we didn't do the whole movie. We did or the whole script of Shakespeare, but we did parts of it, enacted key scenes, did some commentary. But you could see even then we were really like Shakespeare was the thing.
Absolutely. And it was
And
something new and exciting for us to, embark on.
yeah, and we did that independent production. It wasn't perfect, but it did what it did, and it actually made us a little bit of money. It was one of the few projects
It
that
did.
actually
It did.
I think we maybe close to broke even, maybe made a small profit. It wasn't much if it was anything, but it was not a complete financial loss like most of the other stuff. Anyway, so we did that, but then like right at the end of the MythicNet era, right before EJ went back to work, we made another short film again based on classical theater of Chekhov's
The
Seagull.
seagull, right.
And the idea there is I wrote a full screenplay adaptation of that play, and then we did this short film with the idea of maybe trying to pitch it as a broader thing. We also did it. It was a part of a 48-hour film festival. I don't know
Oh,
if you
that's
remember
right.
that.
It was.
So we made the whole thing in 48 hours. Yeah. So that was our last big MythicNet project. And then a few years went by. I was working in post. You were working in post. And we bought a house because we actually started making some money working in post. So we bought a house. We
Had a baby.
had a baby.
Oh,
We decided we're going to I decided we're going to do something really foolhardy and take a second mortgage on our house and make another short film. But this time I'm like, I want to put some money into it because I
Oh,
want it
you
to look
did.
good. And this is
it was
Splitsville,
wonderful.
which is based on, again, a short story by our friend Craig
Craig
Bellinger.
Bellinger,
He
right.
comes back into the picture. He
Because
made
he's a wonderful writer.
yes, great writer. He sent me some short stories. I read this one. It was called Gone Baby Gone, which is originally going to be the title of the movie. But I think either Ben or Casey Affleck had a movie at
That's correct.
at
That's
that-
correct.
So we changed the title to Splitsville. And
Which was also the name of a band
that's right.
that we tried to use. The
And we
song
used a little
for.
bit of their
Yeah.
music
Mhm.
for a trailer, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we did that. It did well. It made us some money. It was not money. Got me into some festivals and got me a little bit of attention. But then after that, our son's growing up. We bought a new house. We kind of focused more on post for a while. But then I remember I decided I needed to do some creative stuff again, and I got into What did I do? I did.
You did screenwriting.
I did screenwriting. I took that writers boot camp class, and then I wrote
You-
Hell on Earth.
you did.
Cisco
You
and I
wrote
did
several
that, which was a
things.
big animated thing. And then, you know, what else did we do?
We
after
also
that?
worked on screenplays
We did.
together, and we proposed some of those, and with a friend of yours who was an agent, and
Oh, that's right.
there was
yeah.
the whole discussion of the cost, but the cost,
Yeah,
but the
yeah.
cost, yeah.
But then we got into doing a family band with Kyle, our son, the Chest Hairs. And we did that for quite a while, really from about 2014, 2015, up until he moved out of here. And was that 2021, 22? 22. He moved out in 22. So the Chest Hairs was about a 6 to 8 year span. And we covered a lot of songs, made probably 60, 70 videos
Yeah.
between the Beatles and all the covers. And that was kind of our big creative outlet.
And then we
shot a
started
lot.
writing our own songs.
We did. So that was our big creative outlet up until he left. And then everything that I describe in my other video, I don't want to go through the whole story of basically how we got to the point where we decided we were going to do what we're doing right now, which is the Sonnet microfilm shot, all virtual production. And that's where we are right now. We're even more or less sticking with our little outline here.
Look at us following the outline.
So let's talk about that project. So I decide, after I leave post, that I need to get into doing virtual production. I need to learn about that. And also that I've rekindled my passion for making films anyway. I'm going to try to, not just these shorts, not just virtual production, but I want to get back into making films. But this is our first thing. I want to learn. Everybody who reads or knows much about what's going on in this industry knows virtual production over the past 5 or 6 years has been a really big thing. And the idea there is you're doing CG sets in some ways. Maybe they're not replacing the set completely, but at least part of the set is CG. But it's not just like the old traditional stuff where you do all of it in post, do all the camera tracking in post. Virtual production, the camera tracking is happening in real time. And in some cases, if you're doing it with the volumes behind you, you've got TVs essentially behind you projecting the set and throwing light on you. So it's definitely a different way and a new way of approaching it.
And those of you who know Brett also know that when he digs into something, he goes full in. He loves to learn new technology. And so this was a great way to propel him into this new area of filmmaking. He just sucks it up like a sponge.
Well, and also I really, when I want to learn how to do something, I've found that the best thing for me to do is just give myself a project.
Right.
So I did a lot of testing and training and learning, and I was like, okay, I just have to do something. This is the only way I'm really going to figure this out.
Which is how we came about to Sonnet 26.
That's right. So we decided we wanted to do, I talked about it in that other, not a video, the most recent one where I talked about doing a microfilm. I was planning on doing another thing, but then I decided, we kind of landed on this. So the microfilm that I did make using virtual production is based on Sonnet 27 by William Shakespeare again. And my star is Fara Zimmerman, my wife. So we're going to take a quick look at this and react to it soon. But we're going to talk a little bit about kind of how we prepared for this first. So it is virtual production, and we used a relatively new technology that uses an iPhone to track your camera. So this company called Jetset, well, actually the company's called Lightcraft Pro, but they have a new product called Jetset, relatively new, not even really a year old. They've been really developing it. And it's an app that works on your iPhone that you can then mount on top of your Cine camera, or you can even shoot with the iPhone and put a virtual set behind you, and it tracks all the camera movement. It's really
incredible.
Yeah,
it's
pretty
really
amazing
impressive
stuff. So, and if you want, I'll do a separate video kind of talking about that. I recommend watching their videos. The Jetset guys have their own set of videos. That's how I learned how to do all of it. So anything I would do would just be regurgitating that. But if you guys want me to talk a little bit about that, I can make a separate video about that. So we did that, which also we used the app just with the phone in our rehearsal process, so that when we decided we were going to shoot on this set, so we use Unreal Engine with Jetset. Unreal is the 3D software we're using, where we get the virtual set. We prep it in there. So basically, I found this virtual set for Unreal called Cigar Room. And I started
we had to take out all the cigars.
We did get rid of all the cigars, yeah. So we do this thing with the Cigar Room. I do the set. I load it up on the phone. We shoot some stuff in our living room, kind of starting to figure this out with Fara reading the monologue or the poem and me shooting her on this virtual set and doing all this. And then we come up with this little scenario that makes sense for the cigar room. And you'll see
Well, it
soon
also
what it
has
is.
to make sense for the sonnet. Obviously, Shakespeare's sonnets, there's a whole section of them that focuses on one particular person, and then there are a bunch of others that focus on other things. So we had to really pick something that could tell a story, because if you're doing a microfilm, you still have to have a beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah, and you're right. There actually is a couple of different subjects. He's usually talking to one person,
Right.
but there are different ideas about who those people are.
Right.
But we decided to come up with our own kind of idea to make it personal for Farah, give her something to connect to, make it work for the environment we set it in. And why don't you talk about what we came up with there?
Well, so as is the case in the first chunk of those sonnets, he seems to be talking to a love interest. And the important thing for us, for me, was to figure out what is the story that is happening in this sonnet in relation to this love interest. And so we created our scenario. I don't know if we want to tell what the scenario is, because honestly, they can watch it and hopefully figure it out.
Yeah, I think,
But
I don't think, I mean, we could talk about it maybe after we watch it. But yeah.
But yeah, we created the scenario of what is going on with me in relation to the love interest, which is the focus of who I am speaking to when directing the camera.
Yeah. So we decided to do a direct address. You're looking at the camera the whole time as if you're speaking to another character. So that is
Right.
kind of the idea. And we're going to watch it here in just a second, and then we'll talk a little bit about maybe what that is. But we ended up shooting this thing at the Green Lab. Wanted to give them a little plug and talk about that. That's a guy that was a friend of a friend kind of thing. We had mutual friends. Farah even knew him a
I
little
worked
bit.
with him in post-production.
His name is Paul Roman. He also worked in posts. We worked both at Encore Video, but he was a colorist, and he was a little bit before my time, so we never worked together doing that. But we come from similar backgrounds. So, so Paul owns this space called the Green Lab in West LA that we shot this at. So I think now maybe we'll go ahead and take a look at it.
You ready to switch
Let me get it
over?
over here. Yeah, go ahead and switch over. We'll all watch it here with you.
Weary with toil, I haste me to my bed, the dear repose for limbs with travel tired. But then begins a journey in my head
Real thing here.
to work my mind when body's works expired. For then my thoughts, far from where I abide, intend a zealous pilgrimage to thee, and keep my drooping eyelids open wide, looking on darkness which the blind do see. Save that my soul's imaginary sight presents thy shadow to my sightless view, which like a jewel hung in ghastly night makes black night beauteous and her old face new. Lo, thus by day my limbs, by night my mind, for thee and for myself no quiet find.
The glass is also real.
The glasses really is. We're not going to watch all the credits. But I'm going to post this before I even post this podcast. I'll post the video, the movie. So this week, my plan is to post my regular Monday morning monologue Monday. I'll post the movie Wednesday, and then I'll post this podcast Friday. So I'm getting 3 podcasts. So anyway, hopefully you can't tell too well, but Farah's the only real thing in that.
And the glass.
And the glass, yes. She's sitting on a chair. Do I have any of that video? I don't have it available. I'll show you some. I can also do a behind the scenes, or at least how I did some of these things. We're going to talk a little bit about the post, but we're going to talk about things more abstractly and quickly today. But if anybody, put it in the comments if you want to see a post-mortem or a breakdown of really what the footage looked like before, how I did all the post-processing. We'll talk a little bit about the post in a second.
Absolutely.
But if you want me to get into the details and break it down, I'm willing to do a video about that. That's not what this video is going to be. So now that we've seen the video, what is the scenario that you're playing?
So the scenario is I'm at some place away. I'm a married woman at a place away with my husband. But there is a younger gentleman who seems to be part of my fancy. And we've been flirting. So I'm keeping an eye when the door opens and I see that this gentleman comes in. I'm also keeping an eye that my husband doesn't come in, as I'm going to suggest heavily that we move forward with whatever this flirtation is. So that's really
So you're
the
basically
base.
Stifler's mom. Is what
Stifler's mom has got it going on, I
That's
guess.
So yeah, I think that's the generic idea. But so we wanted to give it a real kind of what they call the given circumstances when you're in acting school. What's the world you're in, so that you can stimulate your imagination.
Right.
And I think it helped Fara really find something to work
Helps with the subtext.
with. Yeah, it makes it mean something to you personally, to the audience when they're watching. They get a sense
Absolutely. There's an
going on
idea
there.
that there's actually something happening rather than just reciting one of the sonnets.
Exactly. So let's talk about this last segment here. Let's get a little bit into the post-production. So basically what happened in the production there, you saw, we shot that. I had a couple of Blackmagic Pocket 6K or a 6K and a Blackmagic Pocket 4K and some prime lenses. And Paul, the guy who owned the studio, he owned the 6K. He had a nice Canon zoom that we used. And so we shot with really, I think four different lenses, maybe three. I can't remember. Maybe it's either 4 or 3. I'd have to look back. And we shot at the thing. We tracked it with the phone, with the Jetset Cine on the green screen stage that Paul owns. Then we had to do the post-production, or I had to do the post-production.
He did all the post-production.
Yeah.
That's not me at all.
And what I learned, so my background, I was doing up until this what's commonly known as online editing, which does frequently involve visual effects. So I've done my share of green and blue screen, but I was using more a piece of software called Autodesk Flame. So I wasn't as versed in Fusion, although I have been over the past couple of years really getting a crash course in Fusion, but I had not done a lot of green screening keying in Fusion.
Right.
And there was a lot to learn there. So I went through a lot of pain trying to get good at that.
So Brett Truitt, what did you learn?
Well, I learned a lot about how to use the Delta keyer inside of Fusion. And I learned a lot about how you can stitch different keys together. Because one of the things that is always the case, I think, when you're doing keys, but when you want them to look pretty good, you end up having to do different keys for different parts of the image. And that was definitely something I had to do. But I also had to learn, I just really had to learn the mechanics of how the keyer worked inside of Fusion versus some of the keyers I'm used to from Flame.
So what worked and what didn't work for you?
Well, the big thing I had to learn was it's a little bit buggy. And so let's talk a little bit about, like in my video before, I said I was going to use AI in the post.
Right.
Well, I frequently use this tool in Resolve that is AI driven called Magic Mask. It's a rotoscoping tool that I thought would become very helpful in this movie.
And
I used it a couple times and it was not good. I ended up using basically traditional keying, traditional rotoscoping to do all of this because the AI was failing me. And I tried to use AI a little bit in the color as well, and I had a hard time getting that to work. Maybe I just need to get more in tune with how that works. But anyway, I ended up not using much AI in the post.
What did you use AI?
Well, there's AI integrated into all of the stuff inside of the Jetset software. So there's definitely AI there. I'm going to try to use AI for the sound. I actually haven't finished the sound yet. That's why I'm giving myself another couple days to finish this thing up. The picture is pretty much locked, but sound, I got to do a little more sweetening and mixing. I may try to look into some of the AI tools. One thing I am doing, which is of interest, is I am using Resolve, Fusion, Fairlight. Basically, Resolve's entire suite for everything. That's the
That's
only
amazing.
piece of
It's one
software.
piece of software for all of those things.
And because Blackmagic made the cameras as well, Blackmagic and their products are heavily involved in this project, whether they want to be or not. Hopefully they'll see it and be very thankful that I used all their projects and not go like, don't mention that again. I'm hoping.
I'm sure that's not going to be the case.
Well, anyway, but yeah, so I haven't used as much AI, but I did do a lot with virtual production, learned quite a bit about that, about Unreal Engine, about doing keying in Fusion, and I'm getting to be a little bit more comfortable as a colorist. That was never my thing. I was more of a VisFX conform guy. I never did a lot of color, but I'm kind of having to. So I'm definitely learning.
Jack of all trades. That's what you
Yeah, which can be good, but it can also be bad. I start to feel like I'm a dilettante. Like I know a lot, how to do a lot of things, but I'm not really good at any of them. I sometimes feel that way.
But you are really great at a lot of things. So,
well, I appreciate you saying that. Anyway, so we wrapped this project. It's going to come out this week. You'll probably see this. This will be coming out after that, but we're shooting this before that's coming out, if that makes any sense. But so this is pretty much wrapped. Let's talk about what we're going to do next. We are going to do another virtual production project.
this is something that has been sitting for a while.
It is something. It's actually when Farah mentioned briefly that the Chest Airs had written some original music. We wrote this song, gosh, probably almost 10 years ago, maybe 8. It's been a while. The song's been sitting on the shelf for a long time. And we've always liked the song. And our dear friend, Kate Brennan, who has performed with the Chest Airs, actually sings a little bit of backup vocals on this thing. Oh, look, I found that. I was missing that.
She takes it up a notch. That's great.
She does. So Mirror World, and then our friend Cisco, who I did Hell on Earth with, did some animation for it. And I was going to put out a music video with his animation, but I'd always wanted to integrate some live action. And I tried shooting some things a couple of years ago, and it just wasn't looking great. But now that I've got access to this green screen stage because of my relationship with Paul, and we're helping him to really integrate virtual production to the stuff he's doing over there, so he's really helpful to us.
Right.
And we think we can maybe shoot some performance. Fara and I, we have some old performance of Kyle that we're probably going to use. He plays drums on this song. I play guitar and sing vocals, and Fara does backup vocals and sings bass, or plays bass and sings backup. She doesn't sing
I
bass.
sing bass.
She's not really a bass singer. No, that's
It's all about the bass.
So anyway, so that's the next project. We're going to try to shoot some virtual production, integrate Francisco's animation, and finally make a music video for this song. I'm also trying to do some more of these kind of what I'm calling the public domain microfilms. So I'm taking things like Shakespeare's sonnets. I have another guy that I've been working with, an actor we're talking about doing something from King Lear, which is a play that I directed that you were in. I think we mentioned that. Did we mention it? I think
We mentioned
yeah,
something like that.
and maybe do some more of kind of what we did with Farah's, with some other people. But we're definitely going to try to do this music video next, I think. We've got some animation. We've got the song. Now we just got to shoot some performance with some VP. We'll put us on a cool set, put some screens with the animation on the background. And I think that's what we're going to do next. Anyway, that's about it. We're about almost to a half hour. This camera cut out a few times. Hopefully I got it going every time it went dead. That's not the best.
Well,
It's always
I
a
guess
hassle.
you'll fix it.
That's that used camera that Gunner sold me. It's effective. No, it's not. It's been great. I've been using it for my Monday morning monologues. What I like about it is I can set it up and I can look at it on this iPad. Anyway, that's going to be it for now. We're going to wrap. We're going to try to do this kind of thing after we do any more of these, because it's hard to shoot a behind the scenes. I've discovered if I'm actually trying to make a movie and trying to make another movie about making the movie is a little too much to deal with. So we're going to do
Got to
these,
stay focused.
yeah, we're doing these postmortems. If you guys are curious about the post stuff, I will get into that. I will make videos about that. But you need to put something in the comments. Please put something in the comments about that.
Yes, let us know what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And we will try and
Yeah,
Take care.
exactly. So if you want us to make videos about any of that kind of stuff, we will. But we're always going to try to do, when we do a project, we're going to do a little postmortem podcast style like this. We'll probably start doing them over at Paul's place and doing some virtual production even on those, because he's got a better setup. But
yeah, who knows where we'll be in that podcast.
Yeah.
We could be back in Mykonos.
because he's already doing, he's doing podcasts over there, and that's kind of what I've been helping him with, is integrating the virtual production thing into the podcast world that he's got going on. He's doing stuff with Greg Fitzsimmons, who we just saw last night.
That's wonderful.
Doing
Fun
his
show at the
comedy
Improv.
show. He does. He's connected with a lot of different comedians, and it's kind of cool what he's got going on there. Anyway, that's it. We'll see you next time.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.